guys, so I've got a really cool home project I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be making a slushy machine. Got this really cool glass container. It's about $2. These 1 ohm resistors that are about $1. Some super glue. I've actually had these little motors. Usually you can find them in old radios if you take them apart. But I've had this from an old Nerf gun that I took apart a couple years ago. Finally got a use for them. Got a battery pack so I can hold the batteries in it. Electrical tape, about $1. Got some solder, it's about $1.50. Got a dowel rod for mixing. And we got our batteries. So all in all, this costs about 20 bucks, including the soda. And let's see how well it turns out. I'm going to start building it. But since I need both hands, I'm going to have to set this camera up so that I can work on it. Well, it's 1:52 and we have a partial slushy. But I've used like 6 batteries. So, let's see, we've got mostly a liquid slushy. Tastes pretty good. What's left in here is a lot of slushy stuff. So, I'd call it somewhat a success. Alright. Sweet. Alright, now that that's set up and you can see what I'm doing, well, I can see what I'm doing. Time to get started. I'm going to start with motors, and I'm going to solder one of the resistors, the positive contact on the motors. That way I can reduce the power that's going to it, because these things spin really fast on their own. And it's going to be interesting. Figure out if I can do it. There we go. I almost need 3 hands for that. Now that I've got the resistor on there, I add a little more solder so that it stays on. And then of course, you can only solder, or you can only substitute your solder for super glue or your electrical tape. I just prefer solder, but we'll be using the electrical tape later on because it comes in handy. I need to strip all these spare wires down, and I need to solder that to the resistor. The wire around it first for a nice good connection. Then we add our solder. Also remember, I am by no means a professional at this. I've just done it a couple times. Now that we've got a nice solid connection there, let our resistor cool off a bit, strip the other side. What we're going to do with that is solder this to one side of our battery pack. Get solder. Well, there's already solder in there since I've used this battery pack for another project. So I'm just going to melt the existing solder and stick the wire to it if I can. It's a very difficult process for me. I'm not very good at it. Also make sure that you're careful not to burn yourself, because these soldering irons get to a couple hundred degrees. And also make sure that you do this in a well ventilated area so that you avoid all the noxious fumes from your soldering iron. Looks like we got it on there. Nope. Almost. Nope. Come on. Get on there. This is not working. Collect all that solder off. Stick our wire to it. If I can get it to stick. Alright, now that we've got that end to stick, get stuff out of there. There we go. Alright, now for the other side, another wire. This end's already stripped a little bit. Okay. A little more. I want to do the same thing but to the opposite connection. Let's stick that right in there. Get it to stay how I want. And then just drop the solder on it. If I can get it to, there we go. Now it just some solder on there. Also remember, I said do this in a well ventilated area because these fumes from the solder and the soldering iron are they just don't smell good and cause a lot of problems. Alright, now that we've got that all sorted out, yep. There we go. Now make sure that you notice I soldered one end to the black lead, and we want to solder the other side to the red lead. That way we complete the circuit and just, instead of screwing it up. Alright, I'm going to bend this out of the way. Curl this around so I can get a nice connection on there before I drop my solder on it. Alright. almost there. As you can see, this is a very time-consuming step, getting the wires all connected. Alright, now to drop our solder. Putting solder on this, we cement our lead so it doesn't jiggle any while it's running. And make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Test the wire. Alright. Now here comes the interesting part. I suggest bending your resistor. And this is where the electrical tape definitely comes in handy. You definitely want to use electrical tape because you've got exposed wires you don't want crossing. Alright. Now first thing, you want to wrap this lead up from the resistor. Make sure that it gets completely covered. And bend that around and wrap your whole resistor in electrical tape. Make sure that none of the other wires are touching anything. Alright, a little more here. This isn't the most beautifully made machine, but let's hope it works. Alright, now that that's done, gonna make sure that everything's all wired correctly. Bust out our batteries. I'm using a 4 battery pack. You can use a 2 or a 1 or a 3. I suggest double A's because I've found that 9 volts will just short out your little motors. This goes that way. Now what I could do is use 2, I think. Last time I put this together, 2 worked. I don't think it'll work this time though. Nope, looks like I gotta use all 4. Alright, there's 3. There's 4. It looks like it's not wired up correctly. I may have gotten the leads backwards. So, in case of that, very simple. Unsolder your wires. Of course, now that I think about it, the smart thing to do would probably to have been to put batteries in the battery pack, wire that up first and see how it would work. Alright. Now, let's see if we'll just swap the connections. Not working. Let's try a different configuration. Nope. Odd. These batteries are new. These connections should be working. That's very strange. Oh, you know what it is? I put a battery in backwards. Yep, that can do it. Putting your battery in the wrong direction can completely screw up your entire project. One of the wires came off, so I'm going to just re-solder that back into place. Okay. Come on. Come on. Come on, melt. I know you want to. Do it. There you go. Alright. Alright, now that that's all soldered back into place, we'll drop our spare solder on that. And we'll put our battery in properly this time. And double check, make sure. Yep, all our batteries are proper direction. Alright, now let's go back and try again with our test. Oh. Maybe our resistor may be too powerful for this. I guess we won't need it. So, oh well. Guess this is only producing 1 watt. I'm not sure. Where's the... Let's see. Let's try it without the resistor and we'll see what we get. That's our resistors backwards. That's always possible. Actually, I think it is. Whoops. Okay, so let's try and reverse that connection real fast. Nope. Maybe it is the resistor. It's a little too powerful. Alright, well, just gotta unsolder that. Damn it. Come on, melt. Melt. There you go. Alright, now that I got that off, we'll try it again. See if it was our resistor causing problems. Yep, it was our resistor. So, don't use a resistor. Alright. Now, since the batteries will activate this thing, as soon as I hook it up, I'm going to take them out. I don't want this thing spinning everywhere. Alright, I'm going to resolder these connections. 2. Alright. Alright, and the last one. Let's set that down. Put a little more solder on this. I know I'm doing it wrong, so sue me. This is the best way I know how to do soldering. Put the solder on the soldering iron and just wipe it off onto what you're soldering. There we go. Now that that's good, we'll test our battery pack. Okay, there's one set of batteries. Alright, so thing kind of spins like crazy. I need a better way of getting this shit out. Let's try soldering our resistor on the other side. Let's see if that'll work. I really don't want all that power going through this thing while it's in the freezer. I'll just turn everything into mush. No, this thing's too powerful for... I've got it backwards again. It's entirely possible to have it backwards. I've never used a resistor before. I just figured it'd be a good idea. Oh, wait, that's the other part. There's no battery in it. Okay, so that doesn't work. Let's try it the other way. No. I guess it's just too powerful. Well, we'll see how well this thing works with how fast it spins. You can always, like I said, take apart an old radio, and what you'll find in there is one of these, unless it's a 2-piece, and they'll be hooked up to gears, which will allow you to change the speed. You know, speed it up, slow it down. These are direct in motors, which means that all the power of their spin is going directly into what's spinning. Now that all that soldering's done, I can, let's see, we're going to have to figure out some way of getting this on here without causing problems. Since our resistor isn't there, I don't have to worry about that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my electrical tape, and I'm going to wrap some tape around one side. Get this thing this thing is so temperamental. You gotta push. There we go. Okay. Now, keep our leads from coming off. wrap it in a little bit of tape there. Since we don't want it to start spinning just yet, we'll leave one side open for later. Get that there. Now, the fun part, I get to figure out how to put this thing on without causing problems to the motors and without keeping me from putting a battery in it and from keeping it from falling apart. Okay, a knife comes in handy here because you can smooth out your electrical tape. That, let's do there. And I can go, gotta be careful a little bit with this. I don't rip the leaves out. Oop, careful. Alright, wrap this around a couple times. Cut that off. Be very careful when you're working with knives. You don't want to accidentally slice fingers off. Alright, now make sure I can put a battery in here. I'll wrap a couple of small pieces around this piece. Keep it from moving. I would go with the super glue. Don't know why I bought it, but if you can figure out how to hook yours up with super glue better than with tape or string or however you want to do it, go ahead. Guess I figured I could. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put a couple drops underneath on the plastic pieces. I got the gel stuff, so I wouldn't have to fiddle with turn cap until clicking stops. Or until you can't turn it anymore. Okay, so hold that down. Apply a little super glue under each part there. Some on that side. Alright. And put a little on this side. Keep it from jiggling loose. Nice thing is that this is gel and not a liquid, so it goops up a little bit. Stick it on there a little easier. Alright, now that that's done, I test to make sure everything stayed together. Alright. Still kind of scares me that it's that fast, but you know, I don't really want to spend much more. I got most of this stuff for under 20 bucks. I think the most it would cost is about 15. If you can, I would suggest finding, because this is a 1 watt resistor, I'd find a 1/2 watt resistor, something smaller than this. And then, alright, time to go with our dowel rod. First thing we do with this, we open up our jar, measure how deep we want it. Alright. I'm going to have it to the lid. Make a mark. I'm going to cut it a little bit above that mark. Mark's here. I'm going to cut it right here. I should probably get something to actually cut this with instead of and crushing it, but I don't really have anything to cut it with, so I'm just going to go with this knife. It seems to be working alright. About halfway through. Roughly halfway or so. Alright. There we go. Now, what we do is we line up our two dowels, pieces of, make a mark where they line up. Do the same thing, but this time we'll cut along the mark, because this mark marks how high up we want it. Alright. Alright, there we go. Now for the fun part. This is where the super glue really comes in handy. So what we need to do is, my little motors have a nice little plastic shell on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it here, and it's going to rotate along there. But I have to make sure that my rod will fit in there well enough, so I'm going to cut a starter hole here, and work on it and make it large enough for that dowel rod. I'll try not to rip this thing apart. Looks like the super glue's already come off. Oh well. I suggest that if you do it how I've got it set up, either take the plastic pieces off or set your dowel rods up beforehand, or get your holes ready beforehand, so that way you have your holes and you don't have to be putting pressure on it and screwing it up. But you know, this is the first time I'm building this thing, so it's all a learning experience. Let's see, no, a little more. No, almost got it for one. There we go. And that spins around really nicely. Alright, let's see. It's in there fairly good, but you know, I want to make sure it's not going anywhere, so I'm going to put some super glue here around the edges of the plastic. Put a little bit more. Get real goopy. I can just jam the rod down there and hope for the best. Alright. Add a little more around the edges of this so that I know that it gets a nice, good bond with the plastic, hopefully. Alright, that's one done. Now, for the sake of it, let's test this out. I'm kind of scared of what's going to happen, but uh-oh. I think we've busted one of them. Might be a little too heavy or something. Let's try that. Okay, so I don't need to worry because the weight of that kind of slows it down a little bit. Alright, time for the, for the next one. The same process. We're going to cut a nice little hole close to the side here. Apply enough pressure to get the job done without breaking our leads. Battery pack to the motors, hopefully, and without getting super glue on our hands, because that stuff not fun to clean off yourself. Okay, nice little hole started. I think I started a little too close to the edge, but it should be okay. Alright, let's check that. Almost. I'm getting there. Plastic burrs out of the way. There we go. The second rod is in place, kind of. Alright, let's... that looks alright. Get out our super glue again. Yes, I know this looks incredibly odd, but hopefully it will function the way I want it to. It may cost $10 to $15 to make, but in the long run, you know, Slurpees are delicious. And it costs like $2 for the large ones, and then when you're done with it, you know, you want another one. There's never enough Slurpee in there for you to, you know, feel satisfied with it. So I'm gonna make it so that I can get as many Slurpees as I want. And most 2-liter sodas cost about $1 or so. That's a lot more than what you get in an actual Slurpee. So, let's see. Now we've got this built. Got our device a little too big in there. It looks like I can use the battery pack, the stabilizer. So what I'm going to do is cut off a good 3 inches of these. That way, the battery pack, as well as everything else, sits right at the lid. You don't have to worry about everything. I should also mention that before doing this, you should probably let your super glue dry, because plastic and wood don't bond very well together. But I'm impatient, so I'm doing it now. I'm going to have to fix that a little bit. The reason your plastic and wood don't bond very well is plastic is a non-porous and wood is a porous object. What happens is your plastic wants to adhere, but your wood wants to absorb. And the problem is when you put super glue to plastic, the plastic melts a little bit. You ever stuck super glue to something and then use like nail polish cleaner to get it off? After you get that super glue off, it looks kind of funny. That's because part of the plastic underneath is actually melted. And that's actually how super glue bonds with things, is it, especially with plastics, it melts it a little bit to give it a rough surface so that it adheres a lot better. Alright, now that those two are done, put a little more super glue on there just to make sure nothing goofed up. Alright. The reason I want these to be short enough so that when it sits in there, the battery pack is taking the full weight of everything, and these motors can actually work effectively without too much problem. Looks like it's just a little too high up, but because I'm not wanting to cut those with a flat knife, I'm going to get a serrated edge. Kitchen knives work wonders in these situations. I'm going to cut off like another ½ an inch. Nice thing is it's a very small dowel rod. There's not a whole lot to actually have to cut through. There's that one. Now for the other one, about there. Yep. I would suggest pre-measuring your dowel rods before you glue them and everything, because like I said, after you glue them it becomes kind of hard. If you don't glue them, you can actually take them off and readjust how I am. Let's just break this piece off. Yep, broke a little more than I wanted off, but come on. Nope, no more. There we go. Nope, damn it. Alright, so that'll have to do. Now we get these both lined up. That way they're not flailing all over the place inside of our glass jar. I want to make sure that they're somewhat level, like I said, so that they're not flailing everywhere. And then what we'll do is we'll set our contraption in there. Sits down there nice and odd, and we'll just set our battery on, that does not seem to be working very well for this one. And I think the problem may be that the tape is actually causing a bit of a problem here. So we're going to cut off this little folded up part of the tape right in front of it. See if that helps a little bit. The other side seems to be having no problems because I purposely made sure that the tape went under that side just so that it wouldn't have any problems. Alright, I'll bump that up a little bit. It could also be that our dowel rod's a little too far in there. Alright, now that that's all settled, let's set our battery back in there and see how this works. One side is having a hard time while the other is spinning uncontrollably. So let's see if we can figure out what the problem is with one side. I think it appears that I think our wooden dowel rod is actually in there a little too far. It seems to be hitting something. So we're going to pull that up a little bit. There we go. Now, let's see how that works. See if that improves our function. Oh yeah. Definitely improves it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set these so that they dry in a fairly good position. Make sure that they're straight and level. And I'll see you guys when this is actually done and frozen. We'll test out our Slurpee.